Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Scott Winterroth, and I'm so happy you were able to join me tonight here on this webinar. I put out this urgent webinar because ultimately WordPress is about to announce a new release, and I'm going to get into that in a second, but I wanted to share with you a little bit of my experience about what's coming up with WordPress and why it's important to you. WordPress, and I'm talking about the self-hosted version of WordPress, the WordPress that requires you to get your own domain name and your own hosting, is about to launch WordPress 5.0, which is a huge, huge, huge milestone in the overall world of WordPress. Basically, long story short, over a year ago, I traveled to Nashville for the WordCamp sort of national United States conference, WordCamp US. It was in December of last year, and at that time, we were in a sort of launch pattern with what will become known as the new WordPress editor. As you can see in the picture, you'll see a picture of me, of course, and then there's a picture of a gentleman named Matt Mullenweg, who you can see standing next to a giant boot. And at WordCamp US, Matt announced that there will be a new WordPress editor where you actually type in your content, your posts, and your pages by sometime in this year. And it's taking a long time, but it's been officially announced that WordPress 5.0, which includes the new Gutenberg editor that I'm sort of alluding to, will launch in November. And I wanted to take a few seconds to talk about what this means to you, what the Gutenberg editor is, and ultimately what the future is for content creators like you and me. So, ready? Let's jump in. First of all, what is Gutenberg? Okay, so Gutenberg is an editor, like the post and page editor, that is going to be the default WordPress editor after WordPress 5.0 comes out. And it's easier to show you, so I'm going to go ahead and show you a demonstration of what the editor looks like. But basically, you all are probably familiar with it at some level. It's where you basically type the words of your content. And for many years, that sort of content area was simply a rectangle that you sort of just copy. Maybe you copied and pasted from Microsoft Word or some program like that and pasted it into WordPress, and then you hit publish, which is still sort of going to be true with the new Gutenberg editor. But the editing experience will change a little bit. So let's say I'm creating a new blog post, and this is using my personal blog at scottwinterroth.com. This is nothing fancy. This is basically just a regular WordPress install. But I'm going to show you the new Gutenberg editor. First of all, let's look at the classic editor just to make sure we know where we stand. This is probably similar to what you see today. This is the what we now call the classic editor. You have your subject line. You have what's called the WYSIWYG editor. And in here, this is also referred to as the Tiny MCE editor. But this is now called the classic editor. But with the new Gutenberg, or with WordPress 5.0, the new Gutenberg editor is sort of revamps this entire editing experience. And I'm going to show it to you right now. I know the suspense, I'm sure, is killing you. But okay, so if we click on new and then we add Gutenberg, this here, after WordPress 5.0 launches, which is going to be in November, and I'm going to give you the exact date here really soon. In November, the WordPress editor is going to look like this. This is what's called Project Gutenberg, which ultimately was over a year-long programming process to build this new editor that's will now be part of WordPress, the WordPress content management system. And you can see here, there's still very similar features that are similar to what we have now with the quote-unquote classic editor. For example, there's still a title. There's still like a update button. My video may be in the way. There's still an update button. And basically, when you add a new post, you'll basically add your title. So, for example, this is new post. And then this is really what makes Gutenberg magical, is that now there's what's called new modules or block-based editing. So, for example, if I want to add a block of copy, I can select this. I can hit the little plus icon or the selector, and then select what type of content module I want to insert into this particular page or post. So, for example, if I want just to add a standard paragraph, I would hit paragraph, and then this would give me a block of copy to either type into or paste from another program. simple as that, right? Now, oh, don't mind this little green thing. This is Grammarly. This is not part of the WordPress thing, so I apologize. Don't just ignore that. So, anyways, in here you still have like your sort of standard editing tools, like your justifications, your bold, italics, hyperlink, strike through, and then if you click on the more icon, it gives you some more options for this particular block. But what's really cool is that for many years it was sort of like to steal the sort of the Henry Ford quote, you can have any color Model T you want so long as it's black. With blog posts, it was like you can have any blog post you want so long as it's a vertical rectangle. This is sort of changing that. It's going to give day-to-day content creators like you and me the flexibility to add different types of modules and blocks. So for example, if I want to add a column, let's see here. I can go in here. I think it's in, I'm obviously just learning this with you guys here, but there is a new column option. Maybe I'll just search for it. Columns, right? So for example, if I want to have a column of copy here, and then I want to have another, maybe I want to put an image here, I can add a different module or a different block here. If I want, for example, let's say I don't want text, but I want an image, I can add an image here and sort of pull right from my media library, just like I normally would. My little video's in the way here, sorry. So as you can see, you can sort of lay out content easier with this new module-based system. Another really cool feature that this has actually been something that's available for the WordPress for a long time, but I think it's really hard for people where users don't necessarily see it. Is that, like, for example, if I want to add a YouTube video, I can simply hit the YouTube now, and now it's giving me the option to copy and paste a URL from YouTube directly in here to plop the video, and I no longer have to sort of find the embed code to throw it in there. So this is really cool. You can easily rearrange the modules by selecting up and down, like so. And there's even some more really cool features. So for example, with the block sort of functions, I can easily go in here and set my text size, small, medium, or large, extra large, or a custom size. I can change my font size, which actually this has not been something that's been standard to WordPress forever. This is something pretty new. Also, I love this little feature. You can now add a drop cap. So if you want to sort of make like a book-like style, you can do so with a nice little big B and lowercase. So I think that's really cool. And of course, there's some other additional settings. If I want to change like the background color here, as well as the text color, these are all things that never really sort of existed in the core WordPress offering that existed prior to WordPress 5.0. You maybe were able to add a plugin or a theme that created this functionality for you, but ultimately this is now going to be part of what's considered standard core WordPress that will be available to everyone after WordPress 5.0 launches. And of course, there's document settings. This is something you have to kind of check here. There's the block settings. So for example, this particular block right here, well, if I click on it, I'll get the actual block settings where I can change block specific settings that appear once you add a module. Or I can go to my document settings, which would be the overall document. So for example, if I want to change the categories and tags of this particular post, I can select my categories. I can move to the trash. I can preview it. And oops, I got my pop-up blocker here. I can preview it, maybe, if my pop-up blocker lets me. And I can publish it. So I'll go ahead and publish it. This is just for you and me. So basically, this is the new editor. If you copy and paste large swaths of content from maybe a post that you have in, like, for example, Google Drive or Microsoft Word, the cool thing about that is that it will automatically create these blocks based on the paragraphs or based on the returns that you have in that particular document, which is nice. And it's a little different user experience than what we're used to, but ultimately this is going to be a really great opportunity, I think, for content creators. Of course, this is what it would look like on the front end. Nothing special because it's not a really good post, but this is, you'll see your columns, whatever. And of course, my theme is not 100% compatible with it, but I'm working on that. And that's really one of the biggest issues is that this new block editor and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this urgent webinar, is that this new block editing system may or may not be fully compatible with your existing WordPress theme, especially if you have a theme that's several years old. And I know some of you out there have a theme that's several years old, hint, hint. But ultimately, this is new. This is great, but ultimately it may not work. I would highly, highly, highly recommend doing some testing right now to make sure that your particular website or theme is compatible. All right, I have a question. So I want to stop and do for a question real quick. A question from Rick. How would this work with the Divi theme? Rick, that's a great question. Actually, the good news is that it's fully compatible with Divi. If you have a more recent version of Divi, for example, over 3.0, it's fully compatible. I've actually downloaded and used the Gutenberg editor beta testing plugin, which I'll talk about in a second, with a Divi theme-based website, and it worked fine. Divi does what Divi does. Gutenberg does what Gutenberg does. The two of them work. They don't really work together, but they don't hurt each other either. I think the future will show a lot more opportunity with Divi and Gutenberg working together, but I believe the team at Elegant Themes is sort of just trying to make sure it doesn't break things, and then once they figure out what they're going to do with it, then they're going to continue to grow modules on top of it, which will be awesome. Okay, I hope they answered your question. Thank you for asking that. So basically, this is the Gutenberg editor. A couple of things you can do right now. One, the Gutenberg Gutenberg beta testing plugin is available for you to download for free and test the Gutenberg plugin. So if you are familiar with the WordPress dashboard, if you go in here and then you go to plugins, you can just go to add new. And then in here, you'll see right here, it's actually one of the featured plugins is the Gutenberg plugin. And you can install this into your current WordPress 4.9 or whatever, WordPress 4.9 website to start testing the Gutenberg editor with your existing theme. You probably should take some precautions, like, for example, backing up your website before you install this. But ultimately, this is one thing you could do right now is install the Gutenberg plugin. If it doesn't show up in the recommended plugins, you can go ahead and just search for Gutenberg. It's named after Johannes Gutenberg, you know, the 14th or 15th century printmaker who revolutionized free thought with the invention of the printing press. It's that big of a deal in the WordPress community. Matt Mullenweg is hoping that this will sort of revolutionize how we create content. So definitely something to consider when you are getting ready to prepare yourself for this. I have another question. And the question is from Kim. Will this also apply to e-commerce sites when uploading products? Great question. I can't say I can fully answer that right now. The sort of short term is popular plugins like, for example, WooCommerce, which is a really popular e-commerce plugin for WordPress that has announced Gutenberg compatibility. They're actually the same company as WordPress. They were purchased. The company was purchased by Automatic, so it will. So they are working hard to make the WooCommerce plugin that's really popular and used by millions of e-commerce sites globally. They are trying to make it compatible with Gutenberg, and I think by the time Gutenberg launches next month, they should be working just fine. So I hope that sort of answers your question. If you are definitely, if you have an e-commerce site, especially one that doesn't use WooCommerce, then you are definitely a candidate that you sort of want to start testing now to make sure that whatever you do use is compatible with the new Gutenberg editor. Okay, thanks. Another question, China. Hey, China, what's up? How are you? This editor is the same for posts and pages or just posts. Yes, this editor. This editor is both for posts and pages. And I mean posts. For example, you have blog posts here. So like your blog posts, your website pages will have the Gutenberg editor. And then probably, and this is a question I don't know 100%, but I can look into it. It probably will also be for custom post types as well. So depending if the post type allows it. So maybe you have a post type called reviews, right? Then that would also be something that would potentially be affected by the new Gutenberg editor. Also, like this site, I don't have products, but like I just mentioned with the e-commerce site, it would also be something like that would be in your product section as well. So wherever you've seen this existing editor, this classic editor, this is basically going to be replaced with the Gutenberg editor. So anywhere where you see, oh, that's not the right one. Anywhere where you see this, expect it for the most part to be replaced with the new Gutenberg editor, where you see this here. So the one thing I do want to mention too, that if you're sort of panicking, which one I hope you're not, because I think this is a great opportunity for WordPress. It's also, I want to note that the classic editor, this editor that we're looking at right here, will become available as a plugin, just like Gutenberg is available as a plugin right now. The classic editor will be available as a plugin after Gutenberg is launched. So you can keep this editor for the foreseeable future. Also, if you're not ready to upgrade right away, one suggestion is not upgrading to WordPress 5.0 right away. It's supposed to hit in November. Maybe you want to wait till the beginning of the year to actually make that update. It's up to you. I don't recommend that. I'll be updating pretty much all of my websites as soon as it comes out. But you may not, if you're not ready to take on that sort of initial oomph, or you're not ready to want to learn it or whatever, then you may want to update. So yeah. All right. Another question. What does this page builder like? What does this page builder, does this make page builders like Beaver Builder and Elementor less useful? You know, that's a great question. And ultimately, the answer is I think it's really going to actually end up supplementing these page builders. I haven't, I can't speak on their behalf, but I know that page builders like Divi and Beaver Builder have come out with blog posts saying that they're actually excited for Gutenberg because it takes a lot of the sort of the basic functionality that they no longer need to support, and it puts it into, it gives them the opportunity to focus on other areas of WordPress, premium WordPress plugins or premium page builders. Another thing I heard is that through various sort of WordPress communities that I listen to or participate in, Gutenberg, as of this second, Gutenberg right now really isn't a page builder quite yet. It's a sort of content editor like this, but it's not quite a page builder yet in terms of adding additional features that you would get with a Divi or a Beaver Builder or an Elementor or something like that. The good news is that it's probably going to be like that very soon. I know that it's sort of like everyone's expecting there to be sort of a huge land rush of new plugins and themes that come out to support Gutenberg. So whatever Gutenberg doesn't do today, I'm sure soon it will do, because some type of plugin or some type of theme will change that. Another sort of like thing to consider is that Gutenberg, this is phase 1 of Gutenberg, and Matt Longweg, the co-creator of WordPress, has come out to sort of announce that now that Gutenberg 1.0 is going to launch into WordPress, there will be sort of a secondary phase of Gutenberg that is going to take more control of the entire WordPress editing experience. So from the post and pages here to all the way up into maybe even being able to change the headers and the footers with the Gutenberg editor. So this will be interesting to see how this plays out. It's not 100% certain what everything will do, but what we do know is that the traditional themes that we maybe were used to back in the day, that sort of had a one that were designed for one specific purpose may not really live in the coming future. But that changes everywhere, changes everything. So it's sort of to be expected in this tech-based world we live in. So yeah, long story to answer that question, but ultimately, I think it's going to help supplement existing page builders. But right now, it's not the end-all, be-all. It's version 1 of something that I think is going to be much bigger in the future. So a couple things I want to mention to you, as I talked about. We have been given the official word here, literally the official word on WordPress, and I have the actual blog post here. It's opening up slowly. But if you go to the Make WordPress Core blog, excuse me, if you go to the make.wordpress.core blog, you'll see here Gary Pendergast, who is a core contributor to WordPress, has announced right here WordPress 5.0 kickoff meeting October 3rd and release date is October 19th, 2018. So ultimately, RC release candidates, right now it's in what's called release candidate phase, and then ultimately WordPress 5.0, where you go into your dashboard and it says, ping, there's an update to WordPress, please update, is essentially slated for November 19th. That, of course, could change, but this is something, the minute I saw this, that's when I started to jump into setting up this webinar, because I knew that I wanted to make sure that you all were prepared to sort of make this big change into this new editor. There's a couple things you need to know. I've already mentioned this, but I just want to mention it again. One, you want to make sure your theme and your website is compatible with this new feature. Two, you want to make sure you understand how this editor works and the core and the modules that come with it. And three, prepare yourself for a land rush of new plugins and themes that are going to be Gutenberg compatible in the near future. And of course, I'll be your source for anything good or bad coming out of the community. One thing I like to suggest is some resources that I have prepared for you. And if you go to you can check out the Gutenberg handbook. Sorry, let me go back into presenter mode here. You can check out the Gutenberg handbook, and I can email you these notes. The Gutenberg handbook gives you a overview of everything you need to know about Gutenberg. Kind of a nifty little resource here. It gives you a whole sort of introduction to what it is and why. There is the WordPress blog that I sort of mentioned to you. It's a good idea to keep an update on the WordPress blog, because any important information that is coming for a new release is posted here. So wordpress.org/news. This is a little different than what I showed you before. This was the the core make.wordpress blog, which this is more for developers of the core contributors to WordPress. It's good for people, for creators like potentially you and me, or developers like you and me, to keep an eye on this. But if you don't want to sort of get all the more technical information and you just want a sort of a broad overview of what's going on with WordPress, I highly recommend subscribing to and keeping an eye on the blog. They will, I'm sure, will announce the upcoming release here in this particular site. And finally, there's a really cool Test Gutenberg website you can go to that was created by the WordPress VIP team. And on here, if you don't want to install the plugin, but you want to play with like how it works, the user experience, if you go to testgutenberg.com, you can play around with the modules and sort of see what they are. I would recommend going through and sort of looking at each one of these blocks and then check them out. A lot of cool ones here, some formatting ones, some stuff that you would expect, like a custom code or a custom HTML. This is the cover image, where basically the cover image is an image in the background with some text on top of it, which is really nice. Something that you probably haven't had right now. Some of these should be familiar: headings, block quotes. There's one that is called a repeater block, not a repeater, but you can actually save. It's not on this one, but you can save blocks and reuse them, which is nice. So if let's say, for example, I want to save this paragraph and have it on every single post I can save it to the library. They don't have it on here, but in the actual WordPress core, I can save it to the library, and then I can pull it up and use it every time I wanted to use it. It's really handy, for example, if you have like a financial disclosure or some type of affiliate disclosure and you want to use it on every post that you need it, but you don't have to retype it every time. This is one way that you'd be able to do that. All right. So that's the Gutenberg editor. I hope this was a helpful sort of learning module for you. Be sure to follow our Facebook page at Team Content Academy, and I will be posting updates on Gutenberg as they are released, or at least especially the major milestone updates, as well as cool tips and tricks that I find along the way. Expect some more video content from me. I'm excited to get some more YouTube videos up about this particular new feature as they come available. And if you have any questions or any feedback from participating in this webinar, feel free to email me at scott@contentacademy.com. That being said, I'm here. If you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you so much for participating. And yeah, have a great night.